So I think the biggest challenge, the biggest problem, or the way they harm their hiring prospects the most is that most Indian organizations today, most smaller organizations today, actually don't know what they need. They might know what they want.
We are joined by Ankur Agrawal, who is the founder and the CEO of the LHR group. Ankur is also an alumnus of IIM Lucknow, and he has spent years addressing some of the most complex challenges in leadership hiring in India. What's that one advice that you would want to give to leaders out there, especially the ones who are transitioning in their careers, also to the ones who've just started off in corporate space and they are willing to become leaders in future?
There are going to be 2 or 3 things that you have to start with from day one. You have to find something that you love doing. See, unless and until you enjoy what you're doing, you will not be able to give your best to it. The third thing is,
To begin with, Ankur, you have already worn a lot of hats. And before starting LHR Group, I was curious to know as to what was that moment when you decided that you have to start something of your own, you have to build something of your own, especially in the leadership hiring in India? Why this particular domain?
it's something that I arrived at by iteration, very honestly. So, I belong to a business family. I was a part of my family business during my graduation, even before doing my MBA. After doing my MBA, I did a couple of jobs. First, I worked in B2C sales with Philips Lighting. Then I worked with ICICI Lombard in B2B sales, was where I was handling large MNCs. And then I quit and again came back to my family business. But I was always very, very sure that I have to do something on my own. I came back to Allahabad, joined my family business of FMCG distribution, oil and sugar trading. I was not really adding value, creating value the way that I wanted to. Then I saw around and I saw everyone was struggling for people. Even my business was struggling for people. And as luck happened, a Kotak Mahindra bank branch opened in Allahabad and they were struggling for people. And the branch manager was a relative. He met me one day and he told me, "Can you help me?" And in 2005, when I was there, being an MBA from IIM Lucknow was a big deal there. So a lot of people from Allahabad, kids from Allahabad, they were in touch looking for career guidance. The local CAT preparation institutes like Time, Career Launch, etc., they were all in touch. So I knew a few people whom I recommended and luckily they got placed. And that is how the journey of LHR started, through serendipity, very honestly. Very soon I realized that this gives me a kick. Steve Jobs has said it, a lot of other people have said it. Truly great at what you do, you have to love what you do. And I really enjoyed doing this, finding the right fit for the company or the organization, as well as telling the person that this is something that you should do. And that is a skill which I've honed over the years and I enjoy doing it. Once we started doing it, we suddenly realized that if you're doing this thing well, you're solving a very, very big problem for the organizations because they keep struggling, they keep hiring and they keep getting disappointed. Now, if you're hiring at senior levels, it's not always easy to hire and fire, right? If you're hiring at the front lines, you'll hire and they don't do their task, they will be let go of or they'll be warned or they will be driven or whatever. But how do you hire a CXO and then tell them, okay, this is not working out? The organization will go down. You made a couple of bad decisions, no one will want to join you if you treat them like this. I realized that this is a big problem to solve, and that is how I got into it and stayed into it.
Since you've mentioned that you've spent the initial formative years of your life in cities like Lucknow and Allahabad, were you able to pick any experience because these cities already have a very strong pulse. So were you able to identify any community leadership aspect that you try to incorporate while building LHR group, being from these strong health cities?
It definitely made an impact in the way we thought about hiring, we look at people, how we assess people. The culture in a metro like a Delhi and the life and culture in a small town like Lucknow or Allahabad, they're not small on their own, but compared to the metros, they are. The first thing is, in an Allahabad or a Lucknow kind of a city, everything is contextual. It is not you. It is your father, it is your brother, it is your father's brother, people that you know. You all act together and a lot of things are done with the guidance, with the advice, with the push from people who know you and who care for you. At a very early life, you learn how to navigate stakeholders and the pressure from stakeholders, because if you are not used to handling pressure from people who have an influence on your family or the way you have to decide or think, then you'll ultimately not be able to live your own life. You'll be living other people's life. So one thing we realized very early on, that people who have come from these backgrounds but they have broken the bonds of a traditional life and taken up a step to do something different, it's a very strong signal that these people are capable and they have high agency. That is the kind of person that you want in your organization. Someone who's coming out of the comfort zone of your family support, family structure, low cost living, and then looking to make a life, make a career outside in the big bad world. So that is what we always consider. It also taught us, trained me to look at people very closely, because what you realize that someone who was getting good marks in school always may not have been very successful. They ended up joining a government job, a PSU job, etc., etc. And people who were very notorious when we were in school, they ended up being the people who took risks, who built something, who went to the USA early on, became big executives or entrepreneurs. So you have to really look at the people at multiple levels and through different lenses to judge them in entirety. Not just look at their background or their pedigree or where they've come from or the organizations that they've worked with. This is, I think, an important skill which helped us do things differently from the larger established global firms in this space. And that has added value.
And have you come across any challenge while hiring people, hiring talent? If you can share an anecdote just to set a landscape for our viewers.
We come across challenges every day, but there is one mandate that we worked on a couple of years back, which actually became kind of a turning point for us also. So there is this South Indian conglomerate, a 200-year-old conglomerate, very well known, we won't take names here, who was trying to build a modern leadership team for their businesses. Now, this is a theme that we'll explore again and again in this discussion today. What is happening that the Indian industry, the Indian promoters, the overall economy is in a stage of transition. Whatever has been working for the last 150 years is no longer going to work. And the smarter organizations, they are also realizing this. Now, this particular conglomerate is a family-owned conglomerate, and over 200 years, maybe they have now 35, 36 family members who own 1, 2, 3, 4% each. So while the family as a group owns more than 50, 60% of the conglomerate, no individual owns more than 2, 3%. And all of them have a say, have an influence in the way the organization, the conglomerate is run, which was working till now. But now when you're looking at getting into new age businesses and you're having a lot of competition, you're not able to stand up to it. So these guys wanted to hire a new age leadership. We got in touch, someone connected us there. They said, okay, this is a thing that we want to do. How do you help us? And we advised them that you already have they've been hiring good people from IIMs, IITs. They have a lot of professional management. But what they did not have was independent thinking. The horizon was being defined by the family. What we told them is that you need first principles thinking. Now, first principles thinking is where you keep digging into the details till you realize why you are doing something like that. And the best proponents of that in India are the McKinsey, BCG, and Bains, MBB as they're called. So we said you need someone who's a practitioner, who's someone from an MBB background, and who can bring first principles thinking to your organization. They're also used to dealing with stakeholders, multiple stakeholders. And the biggest thing, which is the challenge that all of these people face, is speed. Now, Indian businesses move at their own speed. We have worked in a protected environment, license,
Late back.
etc. Yes, things will wait for you. But no, that is not the case anymore. So you need someone who can build momentum for you. So they said, okay, let us get someone like this. Now, this is an organization which is based in Chennai, very traditional, 9 to 6, 6 days working, etc., etc. Whatever you have seen of old style organizations, it was like that. They were very friendly, very caring for its people, but at the same time, the thought process, the mindset was set in the late 80s. So the whole game was about two things. One is finding people who would bring the skills but also meet the cultural fit there. And this is actually the biggest challenge that a lot of organizations face. And the second thing is making the organization realize that if you want a person like this, you have to take them in its entirety. When I say entirety, you cannot say, okay, give me someone who's a partner or a principal at a McKinsey, which is an IT IM plus 10 years, 12 years of experience typically. But they should come here and work like how we do. Then you will have to take them and learn how they do things and allow them the space to build that engine here which can take you forward. Otherwise, what will happen? Either they will not stay with you, or even if they come, they will not be successful. They will end up doing the same old things because you already have that caliber talent. You have people. So it was a long 4-month, 5-month engagement where we kept going back and forth with these people. Finally, we were able to close the first mandate with a Tamilian who was working with one of these firms for 10, 12 years, who was looking for a 10-year horizon. Because the problem with these consulting firms is that they work in short-term projects, 6 months to 2-year engagements. So you're trained to, you don't think beyond that. You're very good at thinking, but you don't want to stay there and do the same thing for 2 years. So finding someone who actually wanted to be there for 10 years, and Indian businesses, they don't think in year or 5 years or 10 years. They think in generations. Dada lagaye pota khaye. That is the kind of thing that these people think of. Now, having that mindset match where someone is looking to stay there, invest 10 years of their life, and then reap rewards was a big challenge. And we kept doing it. We kept getting people to meet. We kept setting the ground. And frankly, it took us a lot of time. It took us 4, 5, 6 months. And it took them almost 20 interviews at that level where there was nothing different except the ground was not yet ready for these people to be able to accept such a candidate and give that person the space to build something. So this is a very big challenge. It was very interesting. We finally found someone whom we sold the story, and this person was also looking to build something of their own. We said, instead of an entrepreneurial venture, here, if you can go and build this is a $20 billion conglomerate. Now this is a small piece, but if you're able to do it, you have a very, very large liver with you, and maybe you can change the world a bit.
Since you mentioned about cultural adaptability being one of the challenges, so how do you bridge that gap? How are you able to identify that, okay, somebody, you need to like blend somebody culturally in an organization? Because when it comes to identifying skill sets and leadership qualities, that's one thing. But here, I think the game changes. So how do you do that?
That is like 70% of what we do. Because as you said, identifying skills is easy. It's the fitment which is the challenge. So let us say someone is working for an MNC like Citibank or Hindustan Unilever, right? Now, if you ask a Citibank guy to join IndusInd or Axis, what will happen? 99% of the time, they will say no. They will quit. Even if they join, they will not survive. Similarly, for Unilever, if you ask a Unilever guy to join maybe, a well-established FMCG firm like maybe a Paras or even a Patanjali or a Ghadi detergent, they will typically say no. Unless and until there is something larger that they want. So like you are someone who's senior in the detergent business of Unilever, but you're not going to go any further here inside. So you need to go out and find opportunities in that industry. So then there are maybe 8 or 9 players. So if you are getting that opportunity there, then you want to explore. Now, how the cultural fit matters is an equation where there are two parts. One is whether you are getting something that you are really interested in your life. Is this going to be, something which will create an impact in your life in the larger space? And also, what are the absolute no's and absolute yeses that you need? So, for example, let us say you are from a Unilever and you are okay with taking up the CEO role at a Ghadi detergent. You might say, okay, I'm okay with coming for 9 to 6, 7 days a week, 6 days a week. Anyways, in a CEO role, you end up working crazy hours. but I need 4 or 5 people of my team. These are people who are going to be handpicked by me and they will drive the business for me. So you're okay with the culture in a larger sense, but you're not okay with working with the same people, or you need some. So this is something that is to be defined. The second thing is that there are 3, 4 aspects of the culture that you have to see. One is independence versus looking for authority. The second is time frames. Now, independence versus authority is something we all understand. Kyunki are you given the space to take and explore, take decisions, etc., etc. And where the MNCs are very good at are structured independence. So you have your own space, you have your guiding principles within which you can kind of build programs, run them along with some oversight. Whereas if you'll go to a promoter driven organization, whereas if you'll go to some other organization, it is possible. And I say promoter driven organization, but even in India, you'll find very, very strong CEOs who oversee everything, right? You go to another organization and suddenly you don't have that space where everything has to be approved. Anything which is even a slight risk doesn't really get allowed, then you're in a bad space. But the second thing, time frame, and I will come to a couple of other aspects, is the most important thing. Because as I said, even in my earlier example, most people think in time frames of 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. Whereas at leadership level, the first couple of years will often go in just understanding the business and building your connect and building your establishing yourself as someone whom people are actually looking at as the leader. Leadership doesn't happen just because you have been anointed the CEO. Leadership will happen only because the people will start listening to you, looking up to you. That will take time, especially in larger organizations, especially in organizations which have been around for a couple of decades. So this is something which is a very, very big cultural challenge, fitment issue, that you have to start thinking that, okay, I will spend the first 6 months, 1 year in just doing that. I don't want to do a quick in and out. Okay, I'll go there, build this in 2 years and get out. The third thing which is there is working with people who have a different background than yours. So if you're working in Bombay or Delhi, let us take our example. And suddenly, even if you're working with the same organization in Lucknow, you're from Lucknow, you told me, will your life not change?
Of course it will.
Correct. What will happen in Lucknow? The pace is slower. People take their personal commitments, personal life, family life much more seriously. Here, weekends are a choice between our personal life, our professional life. You have to balance. There, people will say, this is my family function. I don't care. I will not come today. So, all these things are also a very big issue. Then also the capability. Now, whether the organization that you're going to join in, are they having the same kind of capability that you're used to? So, this is the third challenge that you have to face. And the fourth is, a lot of the times the organizations will have a very fluid leadership. When I say fluid leadership, they will keep changing their thoughts or their decisions based on whatever inputs that you are getting. So this is the fourth cultural fitment that you have to see, whether you are someone who can actually, the candidate whoever is going or the organization whoever is hiring, are they going to stick around with a plan for a certain amount of time, or if they need flexibility, is the candidate capable of managing that stakeholders thought process or managing that kind of flexibility? Because you might go in and after 3 months, if they say, or 6 months, they say, we are, we are now deciding to go in a different direction, then what do you do? So all these four aspects are very critical, and it is very important that the organization as well as the candidates are reasonably sure that, they're getting into it with their eyes open.
And what do you think? What's the most common mistake that organizations often do when it comes to leadership hiring, especially with regards to more smaller organizations, the ones that are evolving, versus the MNCs, which are more established in the industry?
So I think the biggest challenge, the biggest problem, or, the way they harm their hiring prospects the most is that most Indian organizations today, most smaller organizations today, actually don't know what they need.
Right.
They might know what they want, but they might not know what they need. Right? Very interesting. So this is a startup. In fact, I talked about it on LinkedIn also. 2 months back, they raised funding, and the fund is a long-standing partner. We hire for all their investments. So they came and said, okay, we want you to hire a head of business or a CEO or basically a number two to the founders who will run the operations. And we want you to give us a MBB, McKinsey, etc., kind of a principle. And we said, okay, and we started doing our homework. When we started doing our homework, of course, we know the space and all, but you still want to see the fitment and see what is the kind of talent pool which is available at this point of time, etc., etc. Then we realized, they didn't really need someone from an MBB background because the business was well established and it was not something where you needed to rediscover or rebuild something. You needed someone very, very strong with operations and execution and someone who can improve the processes. So we went back with a candidate who had actually scaled and executed his own startup a couple of years back, and he was working as an advisor and a consultant. Initially, they resisted, and finally, after a couple of pushes and nudges from our side, they agreed to meet this guy. So I think the first discussion happened in mid-August. They rolled out an offer this Tuesday, and they have agreed to everything that guy asked for. So they came from saying that we want this guy, this kind of a guy, and we wasted almost 20-25 days in showing them those kind of candidates from a certain background and then trying to convince them to talk to this guy. And after that, it they agreed, they knew within 3-4 days that they wanted to hire this guy. It took them 20-25 days to actually build that role he can be actually effective. But that is what. So the problem is this only. You don't know what you need, you know what you want.
What's that one advice that you would want to give to leaders out there, especially the ones who are transitioning in their careers, also to the ones who've just started off in corporate space and they are willing to become leaders in future?
Willing to become leaders is something that everyone wants to do. They are they looking to become leaders is becoming a question mark, especially with Gen Z, because we are again going back to those times of the 70s and 80s where people were happy with a limited life, where they, you had a job where you were working 9 to 7 or 9 to 6, but life outside that was your own. So we are seeing this again. There are going to be 2 or 3 things that you have to start with from day one. You have to find something that you love doing.
Right.
See, unless and until you enjoy what you're doing, you will not be able to give your best to it. And what I did, and I give this example to everyone, I say, look at my life, what I did. I joined my family business. I got pissed off. 18, 19-year-old, I was selling ghee and sugar in Allahabad. I was like, this is not what I want to do with life. I fought with my family, went for CAT, did my MBA from IIM Lucknow. So if you'll see, ultimately I ended up doing 4, 5, 6 things before I started LHR. When I started LHR, there also we started not with leadership hiring. We started with frontline hiring. Then we did something else, So if you'll see, in the first 6, 7 years of my career, of my professional life, I tried a few things. I tried multiple things, and then I settled on something which really gave me the kick.
Right.
If I would. That is something that you have to find. Because what will happen is that once you like something and you've spent 10 years in it, 15 years in it, you will automatically going to be the leader in your space because you enjoy doing this. No one needs to come and tell you, why are you not doing this? You will be doing it on your own. That will be your spare time activity, in fact. Right? You're just getting paid to do something you love. Best place to be. So that is the most important thing. And that is why, in fact, often organizations say that this person has changed quite a few jobs. We always check whether it is in your initial years or whether it is in your latter years. If it is in your initial years, then you're still figuring out.
Right.
If it is in your latter years, so then maybe what has happened is that you worked in a good place for 5, 6 years, but once you went to another organization, you were not able to fit in, or you made a bad career choice, you expected something different, or you're just not able to survive out of that comfort zone. Understand? So this is something that we always say. So if you have to make mistakes, make them early in your career. If you have to do experiments, do them early in your career. Once you're 40-year-old with 2 kids, fees, their education, and a home loan EMI, you're not going to be able to take experiments. What you want is safety. What you want is
Stability.
yes. There are 2 more things that you should do. One is that you should realize that the era of straight career paths is gone. Earlier, you could do the same job for 25 years and keep getting paid for it and keep getting promoted in a time-bound manner. That is not going to happen. So the second thing that is important is that you must learn to learn. Whatever you have learned in college might not be relevant 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the line. you have to constantly evolve and make sure that your resume is far better than what it was. So when we were just out of college, we were given this advice in our MBA college from some mentor or someone ki every year you should redo your resume and see what new have you added in it. If it is the same every year, then you need to change your job, right? Or you are at risk. Now, at that time, we didn't take it seriously, but now this is very, very important. You keep hearing that Accenture has let go of 10,000 people, TCS is letting go of people, and everywhere they're claiming that we are letting go people because they're not coachable for new age technologies like AI. So that is something which is there. The third thing is that you should ideally find a mentor. Right. Someone not very senior because then they are too far removed, but someone who's maybe a couple of years ahead of you, 3-4 years ahead of you, who's rising fast and whom you can follow and who can guide you as well as take you with them. You know, a lot of careers are built on the coattails of someone who has had a meteoric rise. So these are the three things. One, finding what you love, which is most important. Second is the ability to learn and evolve continuously. And the third is finding someone who can be a mentor, a guide for you, are the three essential things that are going to help you become a leader over the years.
Could you talk about how is it to work with LHR Group? A little bit about your team.
It's like asking a parent about their child. My child is the best. They can do no wrong. So honestly, what I think is that we are a very, very people-friendly organization. Since I started this, I have had only one principle. I want to treat my people the way I would like to be treated. And that is something which I have inculcated, which I built the organization around. If you'll see, we have a lot of people who have stayed with us for very long times. In fact, till 2018-19, most of the people would quit us only because we were not remote and they would get married and relocate, or because kids, or the third reason was they will get a very good corporate offer which we couldn't resist. Now that we are remote, barely anyone leaves unless there is a problem with it. So the kind of people that we hire for three things. The biggest thing is curiosity, because we are constantly figuring out people, we are constantly figuring out the business situations. There is no one way which works in all our mandates. There is obviously a process, but the situations are very, very different. People are curious, they're ambitious, they're very high energy. If my people are in the room, they will automatically make everyone feel more active. So these are the three things that are very common traits. Life at LHR is very demanding because you have a huge weight of expectations. Now just imagine that, there is this 2000 crore guy sitting across the table and who's coming to us and said, okay, this is the problem I'm facing. Can you help me solve it? And they have not been able to solve it. They have a whole organization behind them. They have the network. They know everyone in this. They're not able to solve. So there is a huge load of expectations, which in itself is very demanding. But at the same time, as I said, we want people to find what they love. So these are people who would typically love doing this.
Right.
So we try and have a lot of fun also while we are doing this. So we enjoy, we have our parties. Life is supposed to be chilled out and cool. There is going to be pressure, but pressure in a good way, which is pushing you to do more, achieve more, go forward, versus pressure which is toxic. So that is what I would say life LHR is, and that is how the people are.
So, based on your experience, what are some changes that you've seen in the leadership hiring space in India?
The biggest change is that there is a lot more demand. I think this is something that you might have heard, you might have read yourself also, that a lot of promoters, a lot of businessmen are cribbing that the next gen is not interested in running the business. They'll rather open a family office and, manage money and leave professionals to run the show. I think that is part of the story. It is definitely there that a lot of next gens of the organizations, of the businesses are not interested in being day-to-day involved. But that is also because they know that they might not be the best person for running or growing their businesses. So if I'm purely looking at as an investor, if I own this piece, I will want to do my best to make it more relevant, stronger, grow faster, right? And if I'm not the right person, I'll want the right person, the best person to come into it. So because of this, there is a lot more demand. Today, any organization which is 5,000, 4,000 crore in revenue is looking for not just a professional CEO, they're also looking for -1, -2s, etc., etc. So this is something which means a lot of demand. Then there are a lot of startups which are growing up, scaling up. And as they scale up, they need operators. So a startup founder might have taken it to a 50 crore, 100 crore, 200 crore business. But after that, the stakes become too big, right? So you have come from a mindset where you had an idea, you ran some experiments. One of those experiments found enough traction so that you called it product market fit. Then you raised some funds and you kept scaling it up. But now to do something more, to expand more, the investments are going to be a lot larger. And earlier you had nothing, you were almost at zero, but today maybe a 200 crore rupee business means there is 1000 crore, 2000 crore valuation at risk, right? So you'll want people who are more steady, who are more capable. Plus, overall, the Indian economy is growing, right? Formalization is growing, GST and everything has stabilized. Plus, the new roles which are coming in AI and unfortunately, deglobalization.
Right.
What is happening in USA today with Trump means that whatever supply chains, whatever partnerships, whatever rules of the game were there, we know that they are not set in stone. They can change any week, any month, depending upon who is there, either in India or China or US or somewhere in a leadership position. So how do you navigate this? So because of all these, there is going to be a lot more demand for capable leadership, experienced hands, as well as people who can navigate unstructured territory, uncharted territory on their own. So this is that. AI is, of course, going to be a game changer, hopefully. So how do you manage for that impact? How do you leverage it to grow your industry faster? Is a question that organizations are looking to answer. And if they know they're not equipped, they want someone who can do it for them.
Could you give 3 quick takeaways to all those organizations which are looking for leadership roles in the market out there?
The first and biggest takeaway is please invest a lot more time in doing your homework. I don't know who said it, but I think it's very true that to go fast, first go slow. But what happens is that these organizations think that hiring a CXO or a functional head, even a -1, is like hiring an area manager or a sales manager, right? But it is not like that. You have to actually understand what is the problem statement. Now, till the time you know what is it that you want this person to be able to solve, you will never be able to get the right person. The second thing that you need to do is to build the ground. As I said, we spend a lot of time in actually building the ground. Let me again give a parable. A tree has many fruits and many seeds, which some will blow away with the wind, some will fall on a rocky terrain. Maybe a few small percentage of the seeds will find the right soil where it will grow. So the organization also has to build that fertile soil kind of an infrastructure for letting that CXO come in and grow, especially if you're doing it for the first time or if you're doing it in an evolving business scenario. We often advise the candidates also to insist on getting that space to negotiate on that. Like, as I mentioned earlier, hiring the direct team. Again, I'm digressing a bit, but one of our hires struggled a lot with this promoter driven matters business because while the leadership was all professional, the CEO plus the CXOs, the number twos and the number threes were all old timers who were still connected with the promoters. So what will happen is that the CEO will make an annual operating plan AOP, give it to the sales head, who was again someone whom he had hired, and the sales head would then give it to RSMs and area managers and whatnot. And the plan was never implemented. So what happened? The CEO had to quit after 8 months. Then the NSM which he had brought in had to also quit. Right now, out of the 5 leadership hires that they have, only one person has survived. So this is something which we can put the blame on anyone we want to because no one of them is here to defend it. But the reality is that it was a classic leadership hiring failure. The ground was not prepared. The third thing that we have to tell them is that they have to actually, if you're hiring someone who's going to make a large impact on your business, then you have to start thinking big money. So we have organizations who come to us for a CEO of 1,000 crore business and they don't want to pay them even 70, 80 lakhs. They want to pay them peanuts. They were like, why? And I'm like, boss, this person is going to earn you 100 crores. Why should this person be interested in driving a PNL of 100 crores if you're not even willing to give them 1 to 3 crores? right? It is not about money, but it is about comfort, and it is also about value. Money is a way to measure value. So you have to be willing to pay for the right candidate. We are not saying that you be unreasonable, you be profligate, splurge money, but don't say, ki, no, we have only this budget and we are not going to go beyond no matter what happens. Again, a very interesting example. This relative of mine in Agra who owns an NBFC, 350 crore NBFC, they came to me last year and they said, ki, Ankur, we need a CEO. I said, okay, what do you want? He said, MBA or CA मिला के हो, someone who has done a CA and MBA. I said, okay. And then he says, 18-20 lakh में मिल जाएगा ना?
Hmm.
And I'm like, he was a kind of a elder brother in relation, so I call him Bhaiya. And if he was not, I would have chased him away. I was like, what is this? Why are you wasting my time? But अरे नहीं, इतने पैसे कहाँ है ये? And this is a guy who spent 12 crores last year in his daughter's wedding in Dubai. Right?
Wow.
So this is the problem. You spend money on your personal life, but you're not spending money in building up your organization. Maybe it is related to our concept of dignity of labor. I don't know. So finally, because it was a family thing, I kept advising, and finally ended up hiring someone at 55 lakhs, someone who was in Bombay, wanted to come back to their hometown. From 18 lakhs, he went to 55 lakhs, so 3x. And even then, I think he made a subpar hire because he was not willing to hire the best person who was available, because the impact of that decision is going to be in many crores, not a few lakhs. So
Right.
these three things are the most important. Spend time in actually figuring out what is the problem statement, why you want to hire. Spend time in building the structure supporting such an hire, building the space for them. And third is, if you find the right person, please be willing to stretch your budget. Please be willing to pay well for them. Not extravagantly, but well for them.
All right, so now we are moving into a fun segment. We'll be having a quick rapid fire session with Ankur. I'll be throwing instant questions and you have to come up with instant answers.
Sure.
Experience versus fast growth.
Contextual, but always fast growth.
In-house hiring versus external talent search.
External talent search. You can't hire leadership internally unless you already have it in-house.
Okay. Hire quick or hire right.
Go slow to go fast. Hire right.
Skill fit or culture fit.
Both. Can't be one allowed without the other.
One leadership myth you wish more companies would stop believing.
That leaders are an instant fit. You have to look at them as a new powerful engine. You have to break them in.
A hiring red flag that's often ignored but always costs later.
If the candidate asks about comforts and weekends and timings, etc., before the actual problem.
One trait every founder should look for in their next CXO.
Hunger, ambition,
The most underrated skill in leadership today.
adaptability, being able to learn and evolve.
And one word that defines great hiring.
Reference. Are they asking us or referring us to other clients or not?
All right. Thank you so much, Ankur, for joining the podcast. And on that note, we come to the very end of our episode. It was super interesting to know the insights of the leadership hiring space in India. And I'm sure our viewers must have enjoyed this session. We'll be back again with another guest. Till then, keep watching our series.